It is 3:03 and I'm going to call the meeting to order. Welcome everyone to our first back in person. We have, so the way it works now is if you cannot come, there are two ways to not come. One is just cause, and that you get a one-time just cause, and one is emergency conditions, which is basically extended illness. Otherwise you need to be here in person, and otherwise you need to have your camera on at all times. So we have just cause for Russell, and we have you have Ben's proxy for today, and Tara has Ruth's proxy. All right.
Who?
And Ruth, Tara has.
Oh, Ruth's
proxy.
not here?
No,
Okay.
Ruth is not here. And Trisha, question.
Oh, yes. Are we also permitted, not ideal, I know, but to zoom in from Wake Center or satellite?
Yes, if you're awake, are you awake?
I didn't have time to get there because I
Okay.
had my class, I met with a student, so I am at home.
No, that's fine.
I also, yeah, I'm trying to avoid germs just for at least another month.
Yeah, absolutely. No, no worries. In the future, go for it. Okay.
Wake's okay. Okay.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so let us start by approving the agenda. Motion to approve.
Yeah, maybe you should pass out.
Oh, we have extra agendas if anyone would like. Anyone like a printed agenda? Sure. Pass those around. Do you want one, Stephanie?
No, I
Oh, you got one now. Okay, perfect.
Everybody. Oh, thank you, Tara.
All right. Motion to approve the agenda.
Move to approve the agenda.
Okay, moved by Chris, seconded by,
I'll second that.
thank you, seconded by Juan. The agenda is approved. Public comment. Do we have any public comments? Public comment going once, twice? No? Okay, no public comment. And we don't have any
Alright.
minutes.
Can I say something?
Yeah, go for it,
Right.
Jeff.
I couldn't see if Stephanie was in there. Yeah,
Yeah, Stephanie's over in the corner.
did you want to make your statement? I think about the cafeteria.
Sure,
I think it's a good idea.
thank you. Well, I know I've talked to a few different subcommittees about the cafeteria, and I know that there are other committees on campus talking about the hours that the cafeteria is open. And I know many of us are teaching afternoon classes, but I just want to speak to a little bit what's happening in the science labs. A lot of our lab blocks were on the 3-hour blocks, and I know it's not just the sciences, but other courses are on the same time block. But that 2 to 5 window is an important lab window, and so many of all like the science labs, I know in the Earth and Biological Science building, all our classrooms are filled from 2 to 5. So if a student is taking a class in that window before the 2 o'clock block, then a student misses that 1:30 cafeteria window, and they're showing up to their afternoon classes. Sorry, I just walked across the bridge and I'm like, where is it? But they show up to their lab time already hungry. And so what's happened to a lot of lab instructors is students ask us, like, do you have any snacks around? And students are actually now getting comfortable and, just sharing communal food that's in the classroom. And so there is this beautiful thing of community that's coming together with the students trying to feed each other. But I think as a campus, we all realize that we can do more. And so I know that many people are looking and asking for what solutions there are. But I know, especially for those of us that teach long block periods, a student can't go to 7-Eleven down the street and come back for class because we're just in class for these really long windows. And it really does feel like for some students do a 2 to 5 lab, and then they have another chem lab afterwards. Like chem labs go till they have 4-hour labs, and so it's just really difficult when we're getting out at 7, 8, 9 p.m. from our lab class, and the students just haven't had like hot meal. The food pantry has been such a wonderful resource, and I just cannot thank like what everybody has been doing to support what we have been. It's been so wonderful for us. I know our students go leave and run to the food pantry and they'll come back in the middle of class, and so thank you for what's been done. But I just want to say one thing here. What I've learned is the MVPs on campus are the cafeteria, right? Because when the cafeteria closes, the students want to leave. So thank you. You know, we're training mental athletes, and food is the #1 thing that you need to survive, especially those afternoon periods. So I love the cafeteria. I cannot imagine continuing working without them. The students need you, we love you. So help us be better teachers and help us learn better when we're in class by giving us some calories. So, and thank you for all the work that's been happening. But the science lab, we need some calories.
Yeah, and I just want to say, that we have, this is an active negotiation that's happening. There will probably be hot food for $5 coming to West Campus instead of just cold snacks. They are really trying to work on this. So it's been heard loud and clear by a lot of people. Yeah, thank you. Ellen?
Yeah, I just wanted to echo that. Thank you. We get a lot of requests for food in the library. Especially in the afternoon and evenings. We're open until 8. And you know, just like anytime after 1:30, we're getting people coming to campus. Just cannot believe that there's no food available for them, or that there's only vending machine food that's likely to get caught in the machine. And then the remedy for that is to call the company, the 800 number. It's not even, it can't be remedied on campus. So yeah, I just that would be fantastic.
Great.
I just wanted to make sure, yes, hot food on West Campus. Needed.
That's what you said, $5.
Also, diet soda. We don't have diet Pepsi, only regular, just throw it out there.
Okay, all right. I'm gonna put that one down under their diet.
Well, I mean, if I have to suffer with Pepsi, I need the diet.
All right.
Madam, and I just make a short note that I brought this also to the last board meeting. The problem that at 1:30 the cafeteria closed, and that is a real problem for the on-campus students. We have the campus store where at least the Starbucks is open, I believe, until 4:30. But again, that does not help the long lab students really.
Yeah.
So, and they were very sympathetic to that. So there's, as we said, there is work around.
There is work around this, and it takes, it takes forever. We know it takes forever to do anything, but today I actually saw a mail truck in front of IDC. Kim, did you see that?
No.
No, anyway, there's a mail truck in front of IDC, so, there's slowly, we're gonna have hot food on West Campus, mail delivery is happening again. Let's see what we can do to fix that. Thank you for that. Anyone else? Anyone else? Okay. All right, that brings us to information items, right? We're skipping over approval of minutes because there aren't any minutes to approve. So on the information items, we have the ASCCC plenary. Anyone, any senators can go if you're interested. We have funds for you to go and to attend. It is really worthwhile. It helps you understand the whole process for the state Senate. Worth noting that the room registration cutoff date is coming up. It's March 20th. And our next Senate meeting will be after that date.
Yeah.
So
And I got my reservation months ago, so there's sometimes a problem getting rooms, so if you want to do it now.
and it's in Anaheim, as you can see.
Mhm.
Who wouldn't want to go to Anaheim in April? The question. All right, now, next information item, this is the eternal, having a philosophical moment about the eternal return. We're back to the eternal discussion of proposed start dates for 24-25. You have 2 different start dates that you can see there. The only change is the start date, right? For fall, the draft 1 basically rolls the dates that we're using this year. For draft 2, you'll see the main difference is that draft 2 starts on August 19th instead of August 26th. So with August 19th, the goal is that this will give A&R and financial aid more time to process. The flip side of this is that if faculty got grades in on time, it would make the life much better and easier for A&R. Apparently, they were working until Christmas Eve trying to process grades
And financially.
and financial aid, yeah. So
there's an option not to turn in your grades.
There seems to be with some people.
apparently the non-option is being exercised. I know.
Can I bring up a point of order on this? Even though it's an information item, we can't talk, right?
I think because we could ask a question of clarification.
Okay. So my question of clarification is, I've just counted the weeks 5 times. And that second statement there does not seem to be true. That with the earlier start date, we actually have a week after Thanksgiving prior to finals.
It
No.
doesn't say that.
It says final immediately following Thanksgiving.
That's when finals week will be. Week
No, it
15
won't.
is Thanksgiving. I
No,
just counted.
I've counted it over and over again.
Me too. So one of us is wrong.
So-
We have
It could well be me.
we have the VPAA here who is in charge of the
Yeah.
calendar.
So I'm going with Maria. I think it's right.
The only thing is, we only have 1 week between summer and fall starting.
The question, Kathy wasn't sure this was
Right.
accurate, but it is. Week 15.
I'm gonna count it
Thanksgiving,
again.
And then finals week is the Monday after Thanksgiving. So that seems like a very bad idea, but we're not discussing it now.
Right.
We're not discussing it now, so so that first sentence, please send me the will of your divisions regarding your choice of option is what we need to have.
Count.
And I can pass that on.
We'll check our calendars after the.
I have noticed today, my students had significant difficulty reading the clock today. We're having trouble with time in general, calendars, clocks,
And
all other
and
forms.
it's about to bring forward and then we're all doomed.
And then we're doomed, okay. So if you guys could please take that back to your divisions and see what you think or what they think of this.
But before you do, count the calendar weeks.
Okay, council.
I seem so confident.
We'll spend some time counting there. All right,
Not a.
the president's report, the only thing I would emphasize is, I was gonna go back, and obviously I didn't, on page 7 out of 10. The president's report, it says, Justina, who is here, thank you, and Josh from our X meeting, which is the February 8th meeting, so my mistake. Apologies for that. Also, you can click on those links. These are the BPs and APs up for next discussion at BPAP. If you guys would take those out to your divisions, that would be great. Right, and as we know, next week we have interviews with the presidential candidates, which is exciting. Right. That brings us to discussion and possible action. And we have Cosima here, who's going to walk us through the proposal. This proposal was approved by AP on the 9th of February.
Can somebody take a mic over to her?
That doesn't even look like that bomb.
Green.
Believe, I don't know where it went. Oh, there. Okay. Just make sure.
Yeah, share screen on Zoom.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. Isn't it funny? That's all I've been doing, but all of a sudden I'm in front of people and I'm like there and that's like, great. Oh, I know. Okay. All right, there we go.
Can you just test the volume for them?
Oh.
After they can hear you well.
Can you hear me okay? You
Yeah.
able to hear me? Yeah, okay. All right, let me just go to, it just showed me how to do. This one's a little different. It just showed me and it is this full screen. There we go, okay. All right, so Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Cosima Spellmaster, and I believe I know most everybody here, but if not, I'm an academic counselor on the campus here, and I've been here for a very long time. And I really appreciate the opportunity to come and talk to you about some proposed changes to academic probation and our dismissal policy that we've had for quite some time. I want to just start out by saying that this has been a collaborative process. And it's something that wouldn't be possible even being here today if I'd not had all the wonderful feedback and all of the initial involvement that was done to bring it to where it is today. So I worked very closely in the last year with Jennifer Hamilton, Christina Llaneros, I would say that wrong, Paloma Arnold, and then a bunch of different departments and committees across the campus. So in 2021, a large group of student services individuals came together to do what has been done for a long time, which is to look at different strategies and different policies in the California community colleges, where we might go, what they were doing. And then in last year, given that I have a significant passion for working with students on academic probation and dismissal, I took on the task of working on the policy piece of this and looking at and researching updates, what Title V was doing. And so this is sort of the outcome of that. And so the interventions is not really what this is focused on. So there are a couple of interventions recommended for or will be hopefully implemented into the policy itself, the procedures. I do have a work group that I put together of some a diverse background of academic counselors that will come together and make some intervention recommendations after, depending upon what happens here. And then that would of course be brought to the dean to be looked at on the larger scale, since of course the dean oversees, Christina oversees, you know, the larger portion of the academic probation and dismissal. So as we know, you know, policies and procedures, as I stated, are, you know, constantly being updated and changed. And I feel like we're at a really pivotal point in time to be looking at what we want to do, because there are Title V changes and ways to be more equitable for our students, particularly as we're coming out of COVID and all of just the other variables that we're addressing as it relates to equity in our DI students, and you know, ways of which we can really be more supportive to our students overall. So as already stated, some of those things are listed here, but these recommendations are really here to kind of intervene in more helpful and meaningful ways to help optimize success for our students. As I highlighted, some of them are just straight Title V changes. And I like to highlight too the vision for success for the chancellor's office. There was a goal we were supposed to meet that we have just not met, and that is one of the most audacious goals, and that was to close the graduation or the completion rate by 40% with our Black and Latinx students, Brown students, in comparison to our white students, and we did not meet that goal. So just in some of the data that's coming through the chancellor's office, we're failing, so to speak. And so it tells us that there's a lot of work that we have to do in terms of the strategies and the ways in which we're actually looking at just the academic probation policies and procedures. I also like to just bring into this our vision as a campus. And I like to highlight here that we state that we're a socially conscious community where knowledge and respect is at the focal point of empowering individuals to transform our world. Those individuals are our students to go out into the world and transform it, and we are there to support them in that process. We talk about being equitable, inclusive, respectful, and participatory, a supportive community dedicated to every student, and that means looking at nuanced ways and bigger picture ways in which we can reach our students and support them as they're going through, as it relates to academic probation, multiple variables of challenges and difficulties. And of course, this leads to student-centered policies and practices. So with that said, I think it's really important to just be aware, and unless you're doing this day in and day out, the academic probation and dismissal is a tricky process to try and understand. So just to kind of go over what we currently have, and there is an error here. It should be, well, not an error, just like this is a little bit of an older PowerPoint. So it should be 4255 is our dismissal board policy, and AP policy, so this particular, board policy of 4250 is the probation side. So forgive me for that. So currently, students are put on academic probation as soon as they've attempted 12 units below a 2.0. That might be a few different semesters. They might take two classes and then do well, or have one W or one B or something like that, and then another semester and take 6 units and they still aren't on it. So it just depends upon individual students, but overall it's 12 attempted units below a 2.0 puts them on the probation status. Students are currently dismissed after they've had 2 consecutive semesters below a 2.0. Then they're asked to step away from the campus and they are left to appeal in order to try and return to the campus. There is also something called dismissal exception, and if you're confused by this, I am often confused by this until I go back and review it, but I think I have it down now after presenting so many times on this. And currently, a student, after they petition to come back and they're on dismissal, they must take a minimum of 6 units and in that semester maintain a 2.0 or higher. So minimum 6 units, 2.0 or higher. That can go on for a few different semesters because the student could be at a 1.5, let's say, and they do the 6 units in that semester 2.0. Maybe that doesn't quite bring them above the 2.0, so then we have to do some dismissal again. So that's the dismissal exception rule. And then currently we send letters to students through pipeline, and that's the way they're communicated with. And we know that not a lot of students are reading their email. So my recommendations, I'm hopeful, can be implemented should maybe assist with this process.
Can we ask questions now, or should we wait?
I'm totally fine if you want to ask them now. Yeah.
Okay, students that drop consistently because of COVID, illness, whatever, how many times do they are allowed to drop? For instance, there's a student that I had drop 1 semester, 2nd semester, 3rd semester. Up to how many semesters are they allowed to drop and then continue, or a probation?
So I think that's probably correlated to our to
The progress.
yeah. So the progress probation is really what you're referring to, which is going to stay consistent in terms of its in terms of the policy around that. But students also have 12 units before they're put on probation, and then above and beyond half of their units, when their units become more than half of their attempted units, and if it's 2 semesters, then they're dismissed.
So basically, that progress has not changed. It's stayed
Correct,
intact.
that will
Okay.
stay the same. Yes,
Okay.
thank you for the question and clarification. I appreciate it. Yeah. And I don't mind any questions, but I can. So Title V regulations, and these are the changes. I want to just highlight that the probation 12 attempted units below a 2.0 is remaining the same. So that's not changing. What is changing are the following. Students now have the ability to have 3 semesters of units before they are dismissed with a cumulative GPA of 1.75. So if they have 1 semester, they're put on academic probation. That next semester, that if it goes, below a 2.0, they're still going to be okay. 3rd semester, 1.75, then they are dismissed. So that's a big change for students, and more opportunity, hopefully, for students to make some changes and interventions to be implemented to support them. The dismissal exception rule is also here as an opportunity to change in the Title V. In that students can now take 3 units with a 2.0 in that semester. So the Title V language has changed to allow for 3 units. And we are opting to provide students that opportunity to only take 3 units, particularly as students are working full-time, that they're dealing with all kinds of different circumstances and scenarios, to have less pressure to feel like they have to take a minimum of 6 units. 3 units is a lot easier to achieve above a 2.0 than 6 units for somebody that's working 40 hours a week, but still wants to work towards that associate's degree, certificate, and/or transfer.
I know now we have a maximum number of units students can take when they come back. is that gonna change or is that gonna be the same?
So that is something that comes from the higher level,
Right.
in relationship to the dean, but certainly when I think we look at interventions and recommendations, that might be something we could look at and would look at. But ultimately, I think that, you know, the decision ends up being based upon the dean. Yeah.
We used to have a policy that said, after they've been dismissed, they're limited to so many units,
Yeah.
I thought it was 9. Because we wanted to try to ensure their success.
Right.
So has that been changed to just leave it up to the dean?
I am not, it seems to change by semester, so it's not been very consistent. Sometimes it's been 3 units. I've even seen like less than that. I've seen more. It just depends on where we've been at in terms of the academic policy at that time. And that is based upon the dean at that time. I don't know if either of you have anything as academic counselors you want to
The
add.
dean and student affairs.
Yes, oh, they would be the decision makers around that. So, yeah.
So the question on the table is, how many units you can take when you return? Yeah, we thought there was a cap and now we're saying.
There used to be a cap years ago because sometimes we would ask for exceptions of that cap
Yeah,
for certain.
I remember that. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I've seen it be 3 and I've seen it where, they push to 9. I've seen it at 9. Yeah.
Okay.
But definitely invaluable information to be reflective on again, as we look at interventions and how we might want to support students, right? Provide the boundaries and the structure for them. Absolutely. Yeah. So that leads me to my recommendations, and the kind of recommendations I brought to all academic counselors, admissions, financial aid. I brought it to ASG to talk to them about the changes and get their feedback. And that was very, very positive experience for them to feel included in that process and to have their voice. And I'm hoping to have students' voice in the interventions group and in one of the interventions that I'm hoping will be part of the policy. And at the top of that, and a lot of the top one and the bottom 2 came from research that I did. And so along with that, it is the desire to change the name from academic probation to academic notice and progress notice. This is being done currently at CSU Fullerton, and it's had a very widely positive response. And in doing my research, they had a wonderful abstract that some of you heard me present, so forgive me for the repeat, but it's positive to hear about, so hopefully you don't mind. But the abstract that they wrote is titled "Toward a Racially and Culturally Sensitive Renaming of Academic Probation." And I just want to pull out and highlight a couple of the things that they discussed in terms of why students is so important. One of the things they talk about is the power of language with students and underrepresented students, and really highlighting that a student's sense of belonging and perceived ability to thrive as learners and future leaders is directly related to the language that we use with them. They go on to talk about stereotype threats as it relates to the name of academic probation. They talk about the history of academic probation and where its origination was and where it is today in correlation with particularly students that are being highlighted, unnecessarily in the media and unnecessarily ways, and how that term probation impacts students. I love what they say here, where stereotype threat is defined as a situational threat, a threat in the air in general form that can affect members of any group about whom a negative stereotype exists. And let me just say, as an academic counselor sitting there with students, even using the word academic probation, there's just a feeling in the air. There's a lot of times where we have to sit there and work with the student and finesse the academic counseling session to make it more comfortable for the student. We all have our different ways and methods that we do that. But certainly being able to change the name to academic notice, which is much, less volatile in nature, right? And has a much more of a kind of easy to communicate about way with it, would be really helpful for the students. I also like that they pulled data from the National Center for Education Statistics that supports the stereotype threat, stating that students from communities most commonly portrayed as engaged with criminal justice system show the lowest likelihood of degree completion within 6 years. So again, more support for why we would want to be thinking about our language in terms of how we communicate with students. that actually leads me to, I've already discussed the two in between there about the 1.75 and 3 semesters and the 2.0. So I'm going to move down to the certified letter being sent along with an email letter. So I did, in my research, I came across a wonderful abstract that looked at how letters that were certified along with email letters received a much greater response to take action, and in subsequent semesters, a higher GPA. So to me, it seems as long as there's some financial backing to be able to do this, that we at least do pilot around this. So I recommended that we do a pilot with at least a small group of those students and see what happens, you know. And I'm actually kind of excited to see if we can, you know, I don't quite know how we will track it, but probably Denise and, you know, or whoever else, maybe, I don't know yet, but it has been approved to be able to do that if this is, you know, as we make our changes. Which, oh, I don't know the monetary amount of what it would be to do certified letters. And I guess it would depend ultimately on the number of students we would do, like the pilot itself. We currently have 1,043 students that are on probation in fall. 455 that were, or 458 that were dismissed, 208 that appealed, and 170 appeals approved. So
When you say pilot, how many students are you thinking that will be in this program or?
well, that we would send a certified letter to. Again, all of that would go back up to the dean again in terms of what that would look like, right? I'm looking at the policies and looking at making recommendations on a lot of that would come from.
What I'm trying to say is,
Oh.
how many students will participate in this pilot program?
Oh, I don't know.
Anyway,
Yeah, I've not gotten there. I mean, that's where, to me, all of that comes after this has been approved. Like if this gets approved, then action gets taken, right? Right now, to me, it's more, this is sort of the ideal. This is what I'm hoping we can do. But I've had to go through all of the avenues and the steps and then bring it here. And then, as far as I'm concerned, that's when action takes place. Yeah. Along with that is also looking at the letters that we send in terms of the language. And I went through a training through Stanford Online edX, which looked at psychologically attuned language that's much more positive and student oriented in terms of how we communicate with students and also including student voices. And what I liked about this training was that they went and they researched more than 20,000 different students across 1,800 institutions and got feedback. That's a large number of students, right? To see that's a good pilot, right? In terms of looking at it and just the training itself, I just have to say, I did put the links in there. If you're interested in just like looking at your language in general when you work with students, I found it really powerful just to be thoughtful. We get so in our bureaucratic ways of communicating with students and we're talking about all these acronyms and we just, you know, we can go into the assumption mode about what that means for a student that they already know it. But this really looked at, you know, really being mindful of the language and the way in which we communicate with students. And so they have a great way in there rewording things and looking at different strategies. Yeah. Along with that. So that I've already started working on. To me, that's more just sort of easy to implement, but again, it has been put into the policy itself. So that kind of sums up my recommendation as it relates to the actual policy, policies themselves. This is again a little, when this was uploaded, I'd already done some, or now I've already done all of these in terms of presentations, but the next step ultimately is in relationship to it being passed here. And then once that's done, again, I'll have our work group get together, make those recommendations to the dean and see how we can, you know, continue to make changes for students. And I really, again, appreciate your time and I'm open for other questions. Yeah.
Will you send us the actual language changes in both the AP and BP, so we have it in AP and BP format?
I believe it's actually in the folder itself.
Is
Yeah,
it? Okay.
yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Other questions?
Okay, all right.
Was thinking of any other language for dismissal?
No, but if you have a recommendation, I've taken it through all the groups and everyone's been very positive with it, but if there's something you'd like to,
I don't think always dismissal always sounds so good either.
yeah, yeah. I think that's a very invaluable, yeah.
Okay, so, again, that's, what did you say?
Great.
Right.
Yeah,
Who says?
I often, when we talk to students, talk about step away for a semester, right? But I mean, I think when they're dismissed, it is, you know,
It just sounds so final.
exactly.
And
Yeah.
it doesn't, it's not final.
And what you're talking about is exactly what I think we as a campus need to be thinking about in our larger language in
Right.
general, so, yeah.
So the dismissal is always only for one semester? Or is there at some point a final dismissal?
There's never been a final dismissal that I've known about in my many, many years of academic counseling. It's usually step away for a semester and then you return and have another opportunity. That tricky piece is that dismissal exception rule, right? Where they have to continue to prove each semester that they're doing okay. And that's a tricky one, right? Because we want to be mindful and watchful of how they're doing each semester. If they're still, you know, significantly below a 2.0.
There have been dismissals for behavioral issues that are permanent dismissal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, this stuff is hard for me to grasp, so the question about that, continuing to appeal. to
Yes.
Come back, is the issue that, okay, you come back, you take your 3 units, you earn your C, but they're still looking at your cumulative GPA. So that's the problem, you're still
Correct.
below, so there's no move to change that, like, why not just be like. hey,
Not
come
in,
back?
not in Title V, no,
Okay.
not right now. And in fact, I got confused for a moment because I thought at first, yay, the student can have 3 units with a 175, and no, and the Title V, it's each semester still has to be, that specific semester has to be a 2.0 or higher.
And you have to average it into that former GPA or 1.0 or 0.5,
Whatever it is until it becomes a 2.0, correct.
So you have to you have to dig yourself out of this hole, even though you had these, yeah. So
Yeah.
there isn't a move to check and say, hey, you get to start over and come back.
Well, the wonderful thing is that you voted on academic renewal, which provided
Okay, so
students a
that-
wonderful opportunity to increase their GPA significantly when they took 6 units, right? And achieved successful grades. So thank you very much for that, because that's wonderful for students and a really great way to help them. Yeah,
Could we, I mean, maybe this is silly, but readmission date? I mean, isn't that what dismissal is? Like you have to be away from a semester, so can you be notified, this is your readmission date, this is your return date. So it's like action forward, it's identifying when you're coming back, instead of like you're leaving. I don't know. Think about return date.
so I'm looking to the group because I really like that idea. So in my mind, I don't know what that would look like if there needed to be some other identifications of other names.
Like
besides dismissal.
dismissal and
Yeah.
return date. They
I
leave
mean,
it
if that's something that if, you know, I think that's one of those things that probably, I mean, I can definitely bring that back, and that would be less likely, I think, to need to be, you know, voted on or anything like that, right? That's more of sort of one of the strategies, so I love that. And if there's open to any other verbal ideas, I love, Ellen, thank you for bringing that point up.
So, is this happening?
Kathy, I'm so sorry. Okay, you would not believe what I get with Cosima, so. Cosina is my favorite one, we're on the kitchen, so.
I get professor, I go to professor.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'm sure we all have some of them.
It's like some weird.
I'm very sorry, Kathy.
What I'm wondering is, my question is this something that Ocelot could also work on? Ocelot, right, is the new system that's coming into student affairs that is basically a bot system that connects with students. I wonder if
Right.
There's a way to say to them. you
I
know,
mean, I like that idea, yeah.
re-enroll or something
Yeah.
like that, because it can also, right, I think it can also reach out to students using their phone numbers as well as their pipeline emails, so you can say, well, they disengaged from the campus, but they still have. the
Yeah, I mean, I think,
But even with the probation piece, you know, your letter might not get there, and it might change addresses, email, but if there's a way to send out through a text messaging system.
oh my God, absolutely.
That there's a letter somewhere, or click here for your message, or do something.
Yeah, yeah,
That's how to get even more people.
definitely.
I don't think we do paper letters anymore for academic probation. I think it's all.
Well,
But
it is
yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, so yes, yes,
By mail.
that would be, yeah, but we don't, right,
But
right.
even if students are dismissed from the college, they're allowed to appeal the dismissal.
Right.
And it comes to the dean, so they can come back even though they were dismissed.
Right.
It's when they sit out the entire semester that they don't have to go through that appeal process.
Right.
They just automatically.
Able to come back, you know,
So again, that message though, that student that's dismissed, sounds pretty permanent. Like they're dismissed, and so how do they even know I mean, I'm sure you send,
Right.
and this is the problem, you send the information, they don't read half of what they get, they
No.
probably are in shock when they read dismissed,
right,
and they stop reading.
Right.
I mean, I would, you know, if you're dismissed, okay, screw that school.
right,
So then what do? You know, then how do you keep their attention long enough to get them to appeal? Because a lot of them do come back.
right, right.
Great, great questions, great comments. We're of course racing along to the next step here. Any last comments?
Abstention. Abstain instead of.
I don't know what that means. It's a little, I don't know, little. Okay.
They might not know what it means. I was gonna say this is possible absence, I moved to approve. But are we supposed to take it back to were we already supposed to take it back to our divisions?
We are.
It's one of those, it's our call, if people want to take that time, of course, we can around to the next one to approve.
It's been approved from AP, it's come to us from AP.
Our AP committee?
Yes, and they approved it on 2/9/23. But I wanted her to come here and give this presentation because it's so key to bring back to your divisions for faculty to really understand where this is coming from.
And I think like the questions about the different levels of academic probation and dismissal just really raises that kind of that key progress probation that you brought up, you know, and so my student is not, what does that look like? Those are, they're tricky pieces unless you're doing them day in and day out with students. So I mean, I think it makes the larger question as we progress forward in terms of how do we update the website? I mean, I have all these ideas about how to, you know, can we do like Google Docs in there to have students fill out forms when they're returning?
Right.
Can we, you know, can there be something that's more interactive for faculty? Because this is so, you know, teaching faculty at the, you know, ESC faculty, well, at least the counseling side, we're in it all the time, but teaching faculty and other ESC, you know, it's not something you're dealing with on a regular basis. So how can we as a campus communicate that more clearly to you as well? So if you do need to speak to your students to understand that a little bit more. But that's, again,
So we have a motion on the floor from Kim that we vote. Is there a second to this motion? Thanks, Ellen. So, motion from Kim, seconded by Ellen. All in favor in the room, can you raise your hands?
We can wait for any discussion. if anybody wants
That's right.
to.
Any
I'm happy
discussion?
to leave to. create-
No, no,
after you-
no, no, yes, of course.
Oh, okay.
And we haven't got, yeah.
I just would like to include maybe thinking about that language. Around dismissal, because it's not only for kind of to think about, but
I think that's a friendly amendment to ask for the experts to look at that language, but
Mhm.
we'd love to hear back, right? That it's a.
Yeah, I really like that a lot. Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay, so that's the end of discussion. So we'll have the vote now. Got a motion, second discussion. Suggestion to come back to us about academic dismissal. Okay, so I'm so excited to get to do this in person, except for those of you up there, right? We'll come to those of you out there for after, but for those of us in the room, you raise your hands if you are in favor of this. 4. 11.
Wonderful.
11, and online, how many of you are in favor? Thank you, 2, 3, 4, 5, Jeff is giving many signs there, okay, awesome. Okay, it has, passed unanimously, and thank you, Vicky, in there.
Quickly,
Oh, okay.
All right, so for a roll call online in the process. Okay, all right. Ben?
Yes.
Okay, Sabrina?
Yeah.
All right, Ellen? Chris? Joy?
Yes.
Dee Dee? You're muted. Dee Dee, can you unmute and say yes? Oh, tell her what to say. She's laughing, that's where I'm coming from.
Just unmute to say yes.
All right, Dee Dee, if you give us a thumbs up, if you're for this. You get to see it. Which way you want to go? Right, I saw the up, all right, Elizabeth.
Yeah.
All right, Kathy. Yeah. Juan,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
you, Stephanie.
Yeah.
All right. Proxy for Ruth? Yes. Yes. Russell
Yes.
and Anna? Yeah. And Trisha?
Yes.
Right, perfect. Everyone, thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. This was my first meeting in person post-COVID. I mean, I'm in my office, but I'm not like this, so this was really
Can we
wonderful.
get a copy of her presentation on our folder?
On the agenda.
Is it in already?
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I didn't look at the folder, that's my fault.
I don't know if it's in the folder, we'll check, but.
So
yeah.
this was not my most updated PowerPoint, so I apologize. It was, I had done just a couple of other things post that for one of my other meetings, but at least the most important language is in there for you all. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. All right, exciting, student-centered language. All right, and from student-centered language to the arcane.
Wow.
What does this mean? This means it's now we're up to discussion, which is 8.01. Presentation on new evaluation procedures from our FA liaison and FA presidents.
I have to go back and.
Okay. No worries.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe I start without slides.
Well, I think we probably need the people to be here. The Zoom people.
Yeah.
No.
No.
Just temporarily.
Oh,
And you emailed it to me?
I emailed you, but it's twice.
Yeah. Okay, there you go.
So how do I now go back to Zoom and
Yeah,
then share?
So I think
Okay.
We get these slides too.
Oh, yeah.
Things we don't have yet, because I think she was working on that till.
Yeah. And then it should, yeah.
Perfect, thank you so much. All right, all this technology, not really used to that, right? Okay, so welcome everybody and thank you so much for having the Faculty Association Eval Work Group present today at this Senate meeting. I would like to start with giving a shout out to the very hard-working members of the work group. By the way, can you all hear me? And can you please see my slides? Perfect, good. To the very hardworking members of this work group, there's Margarita from School of Modern Languages, Mo from Computer Information Technology, Carmen and Kimberly from Academic Counseling, and then we had some members who worked at different stages with us at different stages in the past, and that is Eileen from English, Ellen from the library is also here, and Jeff Gray from math. So I would like to start with a brief history on that because the start of this work dates even back to April 2019, and that was when the Academic Senate initiated a work group to discuss if they wanted to transfer the evaluations for credit faculty, as well as another topic, and that's TLU limits, but the evaluation from AP 7151 into the FA contract. And I just as a little note, I want to say that the evaluations for non-credit faculty have not been following AP 7151 for quite a while because they are in an MOU between the district and the Faculty Association Non-Credit, also known as FAN. So on December 4th, then there was a vote, a formal vote by the Academic Senate to approve the transfer of these items to the auspices of the Faculty Association for negotiation and inclusion into the collective bargaining agreement, which is also known as the FA contract. In the discussions leading up to this decision, the Academic Senate expressed a desire to be updated on the progress, and we have been doing this on a somewhat regular basis, and also to keep a significant voice on the pedagogical aspects of the evaluation process. And those are mainly located in the performance criteria section of the AP 7151. Those which are specific to distance education are actually located in a different AP, and that is AP 4105. Initial steps that were taken, so it was considered to transfer the policy as is into the contract, but that was not an option because the administration, the district had expressed a desire to first to include a revised procedure into the contract, and therefore the evaluation procedures were just left in AP 7151 during the revision and the now starting negotiation process. The FA formed a work group, which I introduced at the beginning, to explore various approaches and how such revisions could look like. And we informed the district that this is something we were working on and will bring into negotiations after consultation and feedback with you, with the Academic Senate. So what did the work group members do? We took training on best practices in faculty evaluations. We reviewed several other community college evaluation policies, mainly those which were recommended to us either by the FA lawyer or by union colleagues. Also, the then executive vice president, how do I get this out of the window here? Then I got it. Thank you, Margarita. And then the then EVP, that was, I believe, Dr. Ralston, had recommended to us. We entered into an initial consultation with a consultant who is specialized in developing evaluation policies. We repeatedly consulted with the chair of our AP committee, Ellen O'Connor, at various stages of our work. We conducted a faculty survey, and thank you again to Ellen Carey for the survey design back then. And that survey asked about satisfaction with the current procedures. And also more recently, we consulted with Josh Ramirez and Justina Bueller with respect to questions about aspects surrounding distance education and professional development. So where should we, how did we start? And that was with our AP 7151, which has been in place at our college for many years. It has been considered carefully, revised multiple times, input from many stakeholders, specifically the Academic Senate and our AP committee. And we felt it's a very strong framework with a proven track record. So the basis for our work is the current AP 7151. However, when we looked at the survey results, there were 20 of the 126 faculty who responded. That's almost 16%. They expressed some degree of dissatisfaction. And so both the survey respondents had identified problems, as well as the Faculty Association ourselves had identified some problems. And those were then leading to the proposed changes, which I would like to present today. Our overall approach was that evaluation should be faculty driven. That has always been the clear guidance throughout our AP 7151. Evaluation should be focused on continuous improvement and professional development not punitive in character. And I quoted the 7151 to ensure quality instruction and quality student support services, to share ideas for such quality instruction and service to students with other faculty, and to identify areas of strength and or areas needing improvement, and to develop a plan for improvement if so is needed. We want to recognize that everyone, each one of us, has room for further growth in our teaching, in our work. And so evaluation should include recommendations for professional growth for everyone, regardless of the determination. Evaluation should be clear in procedures, outcomes, rights, and responsibilities, well organized and consistently scheduled. These were the areas we did identify. Clarity is a very important aspect in such kind of a procedure. We have observed as an FA that the lack of clarity has been most often the cause of grievances. We needed to remove ambiguities, clarify areas that appeared vague, and make sure that the intent of our policy is clearly reflected in the language. DEIAA aspects should be definitely given more emphasis in our procedures, and it's also now a legal requirement. Online classes and online work has become a way more weight through COVID and needs more emphasis. Training and support for both evaluators and evaluatees. The AP 7151 calls for training for evaluators. However, it had never been offered, but after the FA had taken over, that was the first thing we did. We started a regular, once a semester, evaluation training and Kathy O'Connor has been helping us with that as well as Josh Ramirez. And we offered that. Yeah, so this is it. And there's actually several faculty and as well as some managers who have attended this training. We also feel it's important to support our faculty, specifically the evaluatee, especially if they are struggling, but also support's always important even if they are not. And that is also not well enough addressed in AP 7151. It is addressed, but we would like to strengthen that. And then there's other items, a lot of other items that were brought to the FA's attention. So I would like us all to take a look at the structure of AP 7151. And I'm a little bit worried clicking this because maybe I'm not coming back. So let's talk about this in theory. So the first two pages is the table of contents. That in the revision that. Then pages 3 and 4 are some regulations which address the general overview. For example, why we have this evaluation policy and what our focus is. And then pages 5 through 9 are very important. And that was back then the discussion by the Academic Senate, where maybe we should leave this part actually in policy and move only everything else into the contract. And that is the performance criteria. At the moment, we have these 5 performance criteria: expertise in academic discipline and or area of assignment, effectiveness in teaching, respectively the performance of job responsibility available to students and colleagues, fulfillment of responsibilities to the district goals and policies, and number 5, professional growth. And then after page 9, starting with page 10, that is the main part of the evaluation procedures. And they are separated out in a section for probationary faculty, for tenured faculty, for master faculty evaluation. Sorry, I want to say that's actually one of the changes that we are proposing. It's at the moment, it's master teacher. So we want to change that to master faculty. For faculty with management responsibilities, for temporary faculty, and for part-time faculty. And then there's another part
to this, and that's the forms. And the forms are not part of the AP. The forms are located outside. They are located actually on the Vice President Academic Affairs, who is here today, on her website. They were approved by our AP committee. And so we looked at the forms, or we are looking at those forms as well. So let us jump into the changes that the FA is suggesting here. So let's start with this, with this first section, the general overview. So we would like, in this general overview, reconfirm the commitment to training for evaluators and evaluees as part, for example, as part of the new full-time, part-time faculty orientation, as well as the district's duty to provide support and appropriate allocation of funds for this. Again, this is already in the policy. We would like to reconfirm that, to strengthen that, as well as the commitment to professional development and growth. And again, here, the district's duty to provide support and appropriate allocation of funds for this. In the area of performance criteria, again, I said this is where the FA sees, recognizes, and values the expertise of the academic senate. And therefore, you will see that we have only very few recommendations here, but questions and suggestions for you to discuss. So we would like to recommend to change the term satisfactory to meet or exceed expectations. And just as an FYI, I heard that PAN has already implemented that in this work group suggestion in their MOU. For the non-credit side, we also would like to reconfirm that no part of the evaluation procedure shall infringe on any faculty member's academic freedom as defined by the law and in BP 4030. And then a few questions that the academic senate might want to include in their discussion. So we have these 5 criteria. Is there any weight, a specific weight in which we are looking at the criteria, especially criterion number 4, for example, which is following the requirements for professional requirements towards the district, right? Has that the same weight as all the other criteria? Do we maybe need a rubric? These were all questions we just wanted to throw out there to kind of see if you have great ideas on that. How can we better link or merge the quality standards for distance education from AP 4105 in the criteria? I believe 4 weeks ago when Josh and Justina were here, we mentioned that there are about 30 quality standards in the AP 4105, which is kind of a thing of, it's not possible to include those all in an evaluation. Do we have definitions for synchronous, asynchronous, hybrid, HyFlex, face-to-face with some online presence for these types of modalities so that we can tailor the evaluations procedures to that. Again, how are we addressing the state mandate to include DEIA? And can we link evaluations also as one of the flex applicable activities? So again, now we are here where the meaty part is of the evaluation procedures and the meaty part of the FA work. That's anything from page 10 to page 51. So I separate this out here today in changes that the FA is recommending that will apply to all faculty evaluations, then faculty changes that will only apply to evaluations of probationary faculty, evaluations of part-time faculty, and then there's a set of recommendations that are applicable to other types of evaluations. So this is the procedures, the recommended procedure changes for all faculty evaluations. So first of all, we went through the whole policy and looked and addressed everywhere where we felt that
the language was not including our educational support faculty. Again, the example was master teacher evaluation should become master faculty evaluation. So that was one thing we were basically cleaning up that language and also making sure that the intent is always applying to our educational support colleagues as well. We would like to add the right of an evaluatee to bring in an additional non-voting faculty member, could be full-time or part-time, as evaluator to the committee, again, non-voting. Add a request for that both commendations and recommendations in observation reports are made so that we can identify areas of strength and professional growth. We would like to add mentors for all faculty who receive a needs improvement or substandard evaluation. We went along and we tried to remove any optional steps or unneeded exception, because again, from a FA experience, that is kind of causing problems. For example, now we said deans have to be on all probationary evaluations as non-voting member in all 4 years by default. In the current policy, they are mandatory in year 1 and 2, and then in year 3 and 4, only if the committee decides they want to have them on there. So we say, well, probationary periods really super important. Make the deans a part of these committees in general. Add a 1 week advance notice for all observation visits and canvas reviews. We felt this is a professional courtesy. Add duty of consistency within a department, which materials have to be provided. Again, that is within a department. So if a department says we want to see graded assignments, let's say 5 A's, 5 C's, and 5 F's, right? Like something like that. Then it should be for every evaluatee 5 and 5 and 5 in this department, and not for one person 10, 10, 10 or similar, right? Just like be consistent within your department, please, which materials have to be provided. We want to clarify that surveys are either student surveys or faculty client surveys, not including staff. And we would like in the language, whenever an arbitrator is needed, it's currently the Academic Senate President, which made sense because this was in the purview of the Academic Senate. We want to have the Academic Senate President still there as an arbitrator and an expert, but we would like to add the FA President as well. The next section is for changes that will apply to probationary faculty. We would like to add full evaluations after probationary faculty received a non-needs improvement or a substandard, not an abbreviated kind of like just look at the at a certain list of items, just full evaluations after a needs improvement or substandard, again, only for probationary faculty. We would like to add a fast track spring evaluation after a needs improvement or substandard determination. Why fast track? Because for a probationary faculty member, there is a fixed deadline, that's March 15th. And by March 15th, then a decision has to be made if we renew or give them a subsequent contract, or if they are tenured, right? So, and that came out of an appeal that where then the appeal committee decided that what was missing was a second evaluation after a needs improvement. We would like to recommend that we have one continuing member through all 4 probationary years to the extent possible, so that there is some history for this faculty member. We also want to allow the evaluatee a right of refusal for one committee member. That was actually something came out of a discussion with our former HR vice president, who who had such a clause in their contract in Ventura. And also add the evaluee's right to bring an FA observer, again, only if so required.
The right of refusal be the department chair?
It would be one faculty member, yes.
So what if that's the one faculty member that's been on all 4 committees?
Then we need to identify somebody else, and again, we said to the extent possible. I mean, if it's not possible, I mean, if you have a committee and then suddenly everybody retires, then it's not possible, right? For sure, if we don't have the option, then we need to identify somebody else. Then for the part-time faculty section, we would like to add the evaluee's right to submit a self-evaluation. And I know there are departments who do that already, but we would like to write this into the procedure for everybody. Again, same as above, add for the evaluee a right of refusal for one evaluator. Add communication between evaluee and evaluator prior to the final determination, so that the part-time faculty is not given the evaluation saying, oh, by the way, and that's it, right? So there should be some kind of communication before this happens, and add an option for part-time faculty to regain SRP, that's our seniority rehire preference, according to Article 12 of the contract after a break in service. So basically what that means is they could have more than every 3 years evaluation, so that they can get to that rehire right, back to this rehire right again after they have been away for a while. So, and then is basically the catch up for others. We would like to add a longevity status. If somebody has been here. Yeah, oh, sure, definitely back, sure.
Does that last point just mean they don't have to be evaluated a billion times, or what is it?
No, the article 12 at the moment stipulates you have to have 3 satisfactory evaluations in order to have rehire rights, right?
First, second, and fourth.
Right. So what happens is if you have a break in service, you're losing your rehire rights. But then if you come back and then you have only every 3 years one evaluation, it takes you 9 years to get your rehire rights.
That was my question.
Yes.
Yeah, the evaluation. So basically, you don't require those evaluations. They have to do 3 right away. How are you avoiding? What does it mean to add that option? You have to get evaluated 3 times. Once on that.
No, you would have, unless we have changed the contract, you would have to be and remember that was back then, that was the request from the department chair. They want to have this.
So the option means allows them to restart their evaluation process.
Basically,
First,
yes.
second, fourth.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
And not make them wait 9 years to get their
Yeah.
seniority back, right? Evaluation procedures for other types of evaluations. And by the way, thank you for this question. And I should have said before, if you have any questions, ask me right away, because I know it's a fairly long presentation. It's also a very long policy. 51 pages. So we would like to add a longevity status for all evaluations after 28 years of service. That means after that, all evaluations should be master faculty, should be having the option, again, that would still need the approval of the chief instructional officer, could be asked for master faculty evaluations. We also noticed that temporary leadership work is not included at all in our evaluation process. And that may create a problem if somebody has been a department chair for a very long time, right? Was re-elected and maybe has a very large department and teaches maybe 1 class, right? So then you have like 2, 3 evaluators evaluating this 1 class. That's kind of
a funny situation. So we said, like we would like to include the temporary leadership work into evaluations, and that would be, for example, grant directors, department chairs, Senate president, maybe, SLO director, assistant athletic directors after more than 2 years, right? So, I mean, there is pushed, especially because there's a steep learning curve. I assume, like some of us here can vouch to that. If you get into an office, a new office, but if this is somebody who has been doing this for quite a while, we feel it should be included into
How would
the
it
evaluations.
how would it be included for evaluation?
Well, you know, this is what that is. It's it is a non-instructional function. It's
So who evaluates that for you?
the same committee as we would do for others.
So a department chair like me would be evaluated on my department chair duties.
Yes.
So what form are you gonna have for that? Who are you gonna ask? What's the rubric?
The same as, you know, you have a list of duties as department chair. 187220 is, by the way, fairly long too. I know, right?
I like the idea, but that is a lot of work.
Well, again, you know, this is a change that we are suggesting, and you're right, maybe like, this needs, maybe not in the first round, maybe we do it in the second round of review. I mean, AP 7151 was revised how many times? 10 times or so, before the FA got it. So, let's talk about this change. We also would like to add a clarification for faculty who are reassigned into other departments, or who are actually like changing fully into other departments, or where the department merges. We have designed language for that. We would like to add, you saw all these sections. We believe we need a separate section for dual enrollment evaluations, who are for those instructors who are actually not city college employees, but high school employees. And that again would trigger probably an MOU agreement with the school districts, because we have an MOU with the school districts that says, while those instructors are not SBCC employees, they have to be evaluated following the AP 7151. And that basically would have to be reworded and saying, well, it has to follow that new section of the contract. We also would like to make the procedure shorter. And in this specific item, we want to remove the special procedure for faculty on temporary full-time contracts, but instead just use the year one probationary procedure. They're very similar already. And I mean, for how many temporary contracts do we have
I
every
didn't think
year?
we could even do those anymore. We were told several years ago we couldn't even have
I
temporary.
think you
contracts.
can't have subsequent ones, but you can have one times. Okay, so where am I? Okay, so talking about forms. So, we would like on the general form, we would like to have to add a checkbox for other, and that would be then capturing, we could like write in there here at the side, capturing dual enrollment faculty with management duties, or any other specific types. We would also like to create a separate form altogether for probationary faculty, because there's so much more going into a probationary evaluation, and there might be votes have to be taken about recommending tenure or not, and trying to have one form that captures that as well. It's just, I don't think that it does a good service to everyone. We would like to, if we are going to implement this additional
faculty, we would need a additional line, and also something which has often been forgotten because there's no mentioning on the form, is at the moment, if you, and that's current policy, if you evaluate a part-time faculty that has one evaluator, right? But that evaluation should be going into a consultative process with at least one other tenured faculty in the department. So this is often just forgotten because there is no sign, no line on the form where this is anywhere mentioned, right? So we want to kind of like, if it's only as a reminder, put this line in saying here, this faculty member was consulted in the evaluation of that part-time faculty. We also want to make sure that all signatures at the very bottom of the form, currently there's like, when is the next evaluation, is below the signatures. We don't think that this is a good idea, right? This needs to be above, and then everybody has to sign. And then also there's another form where we'd like to make a recommendation, the Dean's comment form. There is a no comments checkbox, and we heard from many faculty members that, well, you know, this is very often checked. And we have the following suggestion: remove the checkbox. And I understand our deans have a lot of work, and maybe sometimes they don't have any comments, but then just write no comments on it. But just the checkbox, we feel is not appropriate. So what are the next steps? So, question, yes.
I had one question on the other one for the form in terms of the date of when they're going to be evaluated again.
Yes.
In our department, we were told we don't fill that out, that human resources is the one that fills that out. Really?
The committee doesn't determine that. Yeah, the dean's office is the one.
I always put the date on. So I don't, if we're gonna put it up to the front, I don't know if it would make a difference in our department unless we've been doing things wrong and we are allowed to fill that out, and it's not the responsibility of HR.
Okay, we will consider that. I think it's especially if we are assuming that one committee member should stay on the committee. I think this is something that is also the task of the committee, and human resources could like double check that for sure.
And the faculty being evaluated should know
Right.
what prospective date is, so
Right.
that's why it should be done in the committee work.
Wait,
I
my
agree.
department, sorry, my department's the same thing. We don't
You don't fill that out.
tell, the instructor in writing, when is your next evaluation? We let HR tell us.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, let's,
Sometimes they get it wrong.
Yeah.
They're wrong. So
yeah, we
is there
do.
a policy that states whose responsibility that is? Is it the faculty or is it
There-
human
there's-
resources?
It's at the moment not in policy, but it's a very good point. We will clarify that.
I have a question too. I don't think they all have a dean's comment form, that's for probationary.
No,
We
we don't.
don't change her.
No,
We all have deans.
Yes,
Yes.
I'd like never seen that in the past, as long as you're.
and yeah, it's always there for every faculty member. I want to clarify something, and maybe that is where the policy was also kind of, I think it was clear, but might have led to a misunderstanding. In the part-time section, it says somewhere, if applicable. But the FA has argued that as long as this part-timer has a dean, it is applicable. And so it's only not applicable if we, for example, have a dual enrollment high school instructor. That instructor does not have a dean, and then for sure there is no dean's comment.
What, they have a dean, that's the dean of our discipline.
But that's not their dean, it's not a supervisor, they are not our employees. We have, that's another murky area. What do you do if the dual enrollment instructor gets a needs improvement? Because we don't even schedule that, right? There's a lot of things that the FA also has brought up to our dual enrollment office, and so Angelica always gets it in. That's why, bless her heart, she's wonderful. Yeah. Kim,
So should that checkbox thing be also made for the chair's comment form? That has a no comment checkbox.
what we heard is that most of the chairs actually include comments.
I don't. Well, but it's still the concept of removing.
Okay.
the comment box, being like,
Okay,
no,
all right,
suggestion or me,
okay, makes total sense.
okay.
It appeared, from what we heard, it appeared more like kind of like a stronger,
The chairs were flat, it's the same way, but.
Yeah, none of us are.
okay, I
We have
didn't,
15 or 18 hours a semester.
Yeah.
all right.
You had a hand from Ellen.
Oh, Ellen,
Yeah, so this is part of a bigger question, but I'll just ask one further now. So this is, since, some of this will be moving to collective bargaining and will have to be negotiated, I'm wondering how that would apply to the dual enrollment, since they are not union members, part of our bargaining unit.
right,
That's just another layer of complication, and some of this is being moved out of the AP.
yes, thank you for mentioning that, that is true. We would basically have to change the agreement with the Unified School District. Okay, next step, so today, right now, and ongoing, we will consult with the Academic Senate about proposed adjustments and receive your feedback and try to work this in. We are currently finalizing the draft of new procedure language, so you, the next thing you will get, after we have incorporated any feedback, is basically this procedure, as you know it, with a lot of red languages and strikeouts and changes, etc. What we also have been already doing, creating these suggested better forms. I would like to give a shout out to Carmen Rivero for that. And also, by the way, the forms that we are giving as a suggested tool to evaluate force during the observation on how to write up their observation report. And we are hoping to have that in place definitely for fall 2023. Currently in process is our FA evaluation training, ongoing review and improve the content and format of what we are presenting to our faculty. And we were a little bit delayed this semester, but it's happening next week. We had a little bit of a scheduling conflict, but this semester's training is happening next week, and then usually we have one second session right in the 2 last weeks of the semester for kind of like panic last minute questions, right? Currently, we also received just on February 23 proposed changes to the evaluation procedures by the district in the negotiations process, and I will show them to you on the next slide. I want to be very clear that these are in active negotiations. I just want to show them to you so that with whatever negotiation results we are coming back, you will not tell me, why did you never tell us about this? So they are just for information. I will not be able to discuss them. But this is what we received on February 23rd.
Before you do that.
Yes, yes.
So I'm hoping that somewhere in all of this discussion, you are getting agreement from the administration that they will provide effective online forms for us to use effectively. Everybody's laughing, forms are a disaster.
Okay, you're saying these? Well, we could maybe, you mean the fill-in forms?
Yes,
Yes.
the fill-in forms, I don't do them, I just do one and I scan them and send them. I have given up.
Again, I will suggest this to Carmen. She has educated herself and trained herself in the use of this tool. And I bet she can do this for you.
No, it's a horrible, horrible tool. It's not a tool. It's just sort of a PDF that you fill in. It's just, they have nice forms. We have forms on this campus we use for lots of things. That just should be used for our evaluation process. I've always been told that there's not enough money or they don't have time to develop the forms. I've been on this for 3 years. So there's gotta be a change. It's just horrible.
Good things just take time.
Oh.
All right. right, and by the way, after the negotiations outcome, the negotiation parties have reached an agreement. Then any negotiation outcome will have to be ratified by faculty. So faculty, FA members will have a vote on whatever the outcomes are. So the proposed changes now from currently proposed changes that the district introduced during negotiations on February 23rd are the following. All faculty evaluations would include participation of the supervising administrator as a voting member of the committee. Currently, supervising administrators are non-voting, or in some cases are not member of the committee. It depends on the type of evaluation.
Wait a minute, wait, all, that's like part-time. full-time.
That is what the wording says. That might have to be clarified in negotiations. At the moment, the wording says all
Dean.
I
faculty.
think currently you could use the term that a supervising administrator is the dean. AKA dean or.
Supervising administrators, again, I give you the wording from the proposal. Supervising administrators are normally deans, could also be an athletic director.
No, athletic
It's not-
director does not do faculty evaluation. We invite them in
Oh, okay,
to participate
I stand
if they
corrected.
choose. Yes, you be careful with that.
I stand corrected. I
We
stand
cannot
corrected.
provide faculty.
Okay. All right, dean, usually deans.
Okay, all right.
Sorry, I stand corrected. Okay, the evaluation committee would recommend tenure or not based on the following criteria: student evaluations, classroom observations, faculty professional commitments and responsibilities, and demonstrated commitment to professional learning engagement. The current criteria are the ones from the top section, remember, which we discussed, those 5 criteria that
They didn't like our 5 criteria.
again, I cannot discuss, I cannot discuss that.
It was. an-
And then section C, the dean would be recommending or not master faculty evaluation. Again, currently it's master teacher evaluation in the policy based on the very same criteria that are listed, that were listed here. And currently it is the way we operate, and it's in policy. Currently, faculty requests are automatically approved unless the chief instructional officer and the academic senate president determine that a full course evaluation. is
Right
needed.
now, you said that?
That's-
not the way it happens now. The VP has to give us permission to do a master evaluation.
Right, that is the CIO, they are automatically approved unless the CIO and I can look it up again,
Okay.
and the Senate president determine that you need a full evaluation. But it needs to go through the CIO, the VP. Now we have vice.
Now,
Yeah. And again, this is for information only. I cannot discuss any part. I answered questions as good as I could. It is in active negotiations, and the next negotiation meeting is tomorrow. Yes.
In going along with the language for master faculty evaluation, can we change the language where it says classroom observations to include academic counselors, personal counselors, librarians?
Yeah,
Where are you referring to?
under the criteria.
The second one, student.
That
evaluation
again, this
classroom
is, I would like to point, oh, I can't. This part is from the proposal. But we will bring this back on the negotiator. Yes,
Okay. A few things. So one, just to clarify with, so you've already been negotiating on this, so no.
no,
So
this was a proposal
It was proposed
presented
to you, was there-
at the very last meeting. We asked a few clarifying questions. And the next meeting, when we are supposed to talk about it, or
Okay.
when there's an opportunity to talk about it, is tomorrow.
Great, because that was one question about the process. So the other thing, other than the next 23 minutes that we have today for Senate to weigh in. I'm wondering what other methods of feedback the FA is accepting for the summary of what you shared. So just one thing that stood out to me as an example that I know some people in my division would would want to provide feedback on is, the item that staff would not be part of client surveys for faculty. There aren't very many faculty directors in my division anymore, but there have been many historically. And just speaking for the library, where we now have a department chair, but for many years had a director, getting feedback on those client surveys from staff was absolutely crucial. Like there's the successful functioning of the library depends on a good working relationship between the library director and the staff, as well as the faculty who are running this big facility. So I just want to advocate for the staff voice, so certainly our mission as faculty is teaching, and I use that broadly, whether we're teaching in the classroom or teaching at the reference desk or whatever. Yeah, I just think staff are part of the whole project of what we do at SBCC, and so I think that's a really important one. So that's just my own little advocacy for that one piece, but there were several other things as I was looking through the slides that I know other faculty in my division will want to weigh in on as you're soliciting faculty feedback. So how does they go about this?
Good. Great, so let me just a quick answer on the concern you brought. That was something the FA team talked a lot about. And everything what you say is correct. Good working relationships are important. But we are talking here about the faculty evaluation, and it's also not the other way around that the FA, that any faculty would be like surveyed for any staff members evaluation. I think this is the one thing that you said, which is really important, is one item, but the formal process of evaluations we felt needs to be separate from that. But again, this is something we could also
Yeah, I understand that's what the work group felt, but I think that's also something that faculty as a whole, if you're wanting feedback from faculty as a whole, that's just an example of something. The other thing is, I know you have mentioned PIA stuff, but I didn't see a lot of that in the slides, and I think that's another thing that maybe needs to be emphasized more.
Right. We saw the main location for DEIA considerations in the performance criteria.
Mhm.
So, and then to your last question, and I only wanted to address this because I know you and I discussed it before. But how do we get feedback? That would be, I'm open for whatever the Senate decides. I'll be happy to come back. I'd be happy to receive email communications or open a Google Doc for you to kind of like give us feedback. I assume this slide, the slide presentation will be linked, or it's already linked.
It's not like you can give it to me,
I know.
but that's not my part of it. That's, you know,
I
just
kind of, it's last.
saying you made it known to me, but yes, we will link it. Happy. So there's actually two issues here. One is feedback on the recommendations you made as a FA work group. But then I'm concerned about the recommendations that came during negotiations. So when can you talk about those to us, and when do we have a chance to have feedback on those negotiated items in particular?
Well, you can give me feedback, give the FA feedback at any time, because that is very helpful, because the FA would like to have the opinion and direction from the academic senate.
So can you send those out campus wide to get feedback, or are you not allowed to do that? Or do we have a plenary session to discuss those?
I would like to leave it in the slides, and again, I would prefer to see where, if there's any change, for example, tomorrow, and report back. But you are welcome to give me whatever feedback whatever your feedback you want. Again, at the moment, the Faculty Association has only received this proposal, and we have I've been asking clarifying questions. There has not been active discussion about it.
But in normal procedure, you would not agree to anything in negotiations before you brought it back to a plenary session. Is that correct?
If it was like a very important item, yes.
Like evaluation?
As I said, it needs to be ratified by faculty, right? And I don't really like to have a contract being voted down at the end. Yes,
I'm not sure if this is the right conversation place, or how to articulate it perfectly, but I'm gonna do my best. Is there a place where if, I know you put in the like refusal of one committee member, but I'm thinking about our hiring pilot this year and how that may, the new faculty practices may look different than what people have seen previously, and so I'm wondering if there's a way to counteract possible bias from evaluators.
Good training.
Yeah.
On evaluation.
right. So you think like if you, for the evaluators, you actually like keep, right? So it's not that
Right, the remaining members.
the remaining members or the ongoing members.
Yeah, I'm just thinking if like a person, I mean, racism, sexism, all of these things are real, right? And we know statistically, there's lots of research that demonstrates that evaluations tend to be biased against women, against people of color, against women of color in particular. And so we're doing this cluster hire, which will possibly result in more people who are traditionally biased against by evaluations. And so how, like, is there a process for a faculty member who's being evaluated and is experiencing bias from the committee or multiple committee members to like navigate that?
Okay, so for this, number one, there's a few things that we try to help the situation. Number one, we want to have every faculty member be able to add somebody to the committee, a person they trust. Also, they could add a faculty association representative who would be an observer in all parts of the evaluation. We also have a very well laid out grievance process. In the case that the faculty member sees bias, discrimination against the evaluatees, and bias or discrimination against them, and in that way, the faculty association again would assist this faculty, this evaluatee, to grieve an unjust and unfair evaluation outcome. Does that answer your question? So there is a process for that. And we are trying to, by the fact that there's like more people added, to kind of like also help that situation.
I come to that, that's a brilliant issue for raise, and I think what you're saying, that's already kind of too late, like you get to that point and that's going on. We're kind of like screwed up all the time we just said, but we've been hired. So I'm sort of feeling like we now need a pilot for the evaluation of these faculty members who are our team. They're all coming in together. Okay, so I think it, big job, but I think that would be a more effective than to say, oh, okay, well,
Yeah, I think that this is why Justine is in the room, right? This raises the discussion of a few things that we've been talking about the whole time long. This raises questions about academic freedom, especially since that's grounded in DEIA. It raises the question of a teaching committee. And I also was thinking that, part of what we've got in the anti-racist hiring is cluster hire questions. And I wonder if we have something like that, like the cluster hire observations that the anti-racist hiring committee morphs into and comes up with those. And that those have to be answered in the same way that those have to be answered on the hiring. So that the school becomes used to what those are and we just keep moving those through.
That's a very interesting good idea. Yeah, there should be questions, especially on the survey and to the evaluatees on this whole DEIA concept that we're trying to promote. So the thing that worries me is I'm thinking as you're talking, like, I'd like to have some of the people that are on my hiring committee be on my evaluation committee for my new faculty members. But we are overusing people. They are on too many committees. They are not being paid for that work, which really upsets me. And I think there should be a way that we compensate people who are going to be overused in some way. And then the other thing is we don't always know who those people are in those groups. And so we tend to go to the same people we know all the time. And people are being overused. I'm sorry, but it's a problem. So,
Yeah, thank you, Kathy. I thought some nodding on screen for people are being overused, right? Nodding around the room to that. Ellen.
Yeah, thank you for that, Anna. And I was thinking the same thing. It's like the first thing that jumped out at me with the district's proposed language was student evaluations and just knowing that the documented, the research that's been done and the evidence that shows that the student evaluations also are tend to be biased against women and people of color, especially in the sciences. So that, yeah, I think we need to be careful about that. And yet at the same time, certainly student experience is also more important. And so the other piece, I'm not quite sure how to articulate it. This is not going to be a surprise for Cornelia from my time, although it seems like a million years ago because it was pre-pandemic. But my brief time on the committee is that okay. So I support the concept that the evaluation process should not be punitive, that it should be, it should provide opportunities for improvement, there should be supports for that and all of that. And this is where I hesitate to say that someone who's, a diehard union supporter and was on the executive board, we would be doing students a disservice if we have an evaluation process that makes it impossible to hold faculty accountable for at worst harm or even just incompetence or unwillingness to grow and improve and all of that. So maybe I should actually direct that more at the administration than the Senate or the FA. Remember, I'm not negotiating. But that's just something I know we had some conversations about when I was with that group, but I think, and I guess that's one of the reasons why I would advocate for staff having a voice when the faculty member is someone who's like the director of a department that includes staff. Like there needs to be some mechanism for accountability, and I think we as faculty need to not view accountability as punitive. Like accountability is an opportunity for growth, but it only becomes punitive if you're like, nope, I'm not gonna grow, I'm not gonna change. So someone else could
Yeah, I was also just thinking as both Ellen and Anna were chatting, that I like that some of your suggestions are about reaffirming our commitment to professional development, growth and training. maybe, and I don't have the language in front of me, we also need to reaffirm that the procedures are not going to be biased. That we're going to appreciate a diversity of like instructional styles. Right, and that maybe that's a place to add in some of these concerns that we're raising and wanting to likewise. Really put into practice a DEIA perspective.
Yeah, that actually, just to jump in a second, I think it's a great example, because I could, I'll just use my library as an example, like there's, I think some of the best faculty in libraries in general right now are challenging the colonial structures on which libraries are built and trying to decolonize libraries. And if we happen, we aren't thankfully, but like if we happen to be a library that was really invested in that sort of old fashioned way of being a library, then an awesome new faculty member coming in who's challenging those systems and challenging the foundations of our discipline in really positive and meaningful ways could actually end up with a crappy evaluation. So like that, yeah, that was exactly my point. Yeah.
People who are gonna be meeting the requirements for the cluster hire are likely doing innovative work. And that will change, and change is hard for people, so that was why.
And I'm circling back one more time to, I think what we're asking for is people being willing to grow, people being willing to grow on committees. This is the kind of teaching you might never have seen before, but maybe you can learn from that. Or people sort of feeling burnt out and not really putting in enough energy, and you know it, but the evaluation as an opportunity not to be punished, but to say, hey, I need help. Right? I think this is what we have to create if we're going to go forward as a school, because it's just getting harder year after year as technology shifts and changes, right? But all of these things come at us. So if we don't build something that's open, inclusive, that says we need these different perspectives and that's willing to create a online teaching community moment here, that we're willing to think about creating a committee that says, I will engage with you. What do you need? Let's work on this. Then you propel that person forward in their career and you don't just have them say, oh, all right, I'm done. No.
Can I ask a follow-up question? So I'm just thinking, because one of our suggestions was to give everybody who is struggling a mentor. So would that, with the way I hear you is that could be not just one person, but a mentor committee and
Or a team.
or yeah, or a mentor team.
Right, so
To help those faculty and just like brainstorming and thinking out loud again, this is just like an idea was that we could have a mentor team for the new group of faculty who we are hiring at the moment, right? That we are starting this out from day one and not only on the first day of the evaluation when somebody is sitting in the room and observing them.
I think the problem with that framing, the new people are coming to teach stuff to people who are here. So I wonder if we need to think about also adding a little bit of what you just said, Kara. I might even think go one step farther from commitment to anti-bias, anti-racism, being open to recognizing that, but also that evaluators learn too. Isn't that one of your favorite things about doing evaluators?
yeah,
So what we're, if we have this group here, we have to be sure it's a group who has that expertise, be in that role of nurturing and recognizing and amplifying the new approaches of these faculty members.
Totally agree.
so I just want to, so I'm looking at Josh over there. Josh, you look particularly intense over there. You got your L, you're sort of at the edge, you're like ready. Josh, leaping in for DE, but I also think that this is something, DE has shifted so much, distance education has shifted so much that this is also another opportunity to grow. So the usual assumption with a top-down hierarchy, right, is the new people learn from the older people, right? You've been here 10 years, you know, you're gonna take someone under your wing, right? You think about the metaphor of that. But what we could do is completely invert that, right? So that learning just moves in a non-hierarchical way. It moves in a way of shifting the culture. So I'm just wondering, because I'm looking at the time, all 3 minutes of it, and I asked, and Justina's been here quietly sitting by the window. But Josh and Justina, would you want to just leap in here, because what we're doing is we're now sort of coming from the evaluation to questions of teaching. Give you guys the last 3 minutes, especially since you've been by the window.
Oh, you had an agenda topic too?
Yes, you thought it was-
I'm sorry.
Are you though?
No, I mean, this is just so organically led into why Josh and I are here, right? Josh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, cool. So there's, like, we've just now named like 100 reasons why we need something like a teaching and learning committee, and maybe that's even not the right thing to capture it. It's a place somewhere in the 10+1 infinite where there is a dedicated body facilitating all of these things. And I'm gonna steal brilliant things that Ana Garcia said, like, this is, can I? Okay. I mean, you know, our campus is starting to talk about restorative justice. And that can be an accountability in a way, right, Ellen? Like, it's right. So it's not punitive, but it's accountability, and it's making it possible for us to grow as colleagues. So that there's so much more to say, but that's kind of why Josh and I are here. Josh, anything to add?
I'm also going to draw on Ellen's comment about the evaluation process not being punitive, and also linking that with Cornelia's report from out of the FA about those 30 quality standards that are listed in AP 4105. The way that I see it, there needs to be faculty professional development around evaluation processes, frankly, because if we actually take a look at all of those quality standards, no one is really qualified to really use all of those and to be effective at evaluating faculty. And really, this is new territory for us. We're not just talking online, we're talking about how distance education bleeds into all of our modes of instruction here. So to me, the old way of being able to do this is really not helping us. I don't think it really did to begin with. I don't think that the evaluation process made us better instructors, and definitely not online. And so it needs to be an affirming process because of the fact that we are all just trying to get versed in all the changes that are happening. So that's exactly why I think a teaching and learning committee is really needed. And from what I can tell of our respective discussions in CFR or in COI, there's no resistance to the idea for a new committee. But on the understanding, it's got to have a clear mission and it's got to have a clear objective. That was Kathy O'Connor, and I fully agree with her on that one. Otherwise, a teaching and learning committee isn't going to have much teeth, and it may just dissolve. That's my 2 cents.
And just to clarify, because I heard it from Elizabeth, it's not that there's no pushback, but the people are quite clear of the concept. And Josh and I keep using some language lately, probably here, talk about a new committee. We're not asking to create an additional committee. We are now proposing, with a lot of support from people, of merging and actually being more efficient with our labor. So probably merging COI and CFR. And that would become that quote new committee. So we're not trying to create an additional committee there.
And CFR used to be the teaching and learning committee.
Yeah.
So it's a shift.
Quick question about that. Do we have support from admin about that? Because COI is not currently in session.
Josh could, I mean, I was there, Josh can get to it too. I think Beth is
Beth is here, but yeah, let's just looking at the time. So let's sort of hear from Beth and Josh's point. And
Sorry, the last question was a little bit garbled. Can you repeat that one more time? Just the audio was a little funky there for a second.
My question, I was just wondering if it's administrative support for merging COI and CFR, if COI is not currently a Senate committee. I'm assuming a merged committee would be a Senate committee. Maybe.
Yeah.
That should be,
Did you hear that, Doc?
What do you think, Beth? I think that there is support for it.
So I can actually speak to this if, and I'll try to keep it brief, because it was one of my action items was to go back to Dean's Council and check in with everybody about this. And at that point, we didn't know exactly what the proposal was going to be. But what I got back is that even if the COI and CFR want to merge and become an academic Senate subcommittee, that there are still operational things that need to have cross-constituency representation, and those would still need to happen through some other body. So like the distance ed plan, for example. But that, as far as I know, it's just there's still an ongoing conversation about that. We haven't had a chance to come back and talk about it in COI since these other conversations have happened.
So why don't we do this? Because I'm really cognizant of your time. I want to respect your time. Why don't we sort of stop here? Why don't we come back? I can talk to Beth and to Josh. I can go to the deans and the VP, see what we've got. Then where's Cornelia? There she is. Okay. So people should get feedback. I will upload her presentation. People should get feedback to you as soon as possible from their divisions and individually. Yes?
yes, please.
Okay, all right.
How
Do
do
you
we
have
do
a-
that? Shall I send up a Google Doc? Or do you want to email me? What do you usually do?
My thought would be email. I think a
Okay.
Google Doc,
Email,
I think a Google Doc would be utter chaos,
okay,
but,
email the faculty application.
okay.
You'll get a bunch of repeat stuff.
I
though.
know.
You're gonna get repeat.
Okay, all right, okay, so put it in a giant Google Doc.
Maybe we'll do a poll anywhere where people can upvote ideas.
Love it.
Right, okay, so we will follow that, we'll pursue these issues. Thank you guys so much, it's nice, so good to have you around the table again. Please take some food on the way back, so I don't have it in my car, right, and, yep. No, go
Thank
ahead.
you for bringing.
Are they?
Thank you, Mel.
Whatever they're gonna do today, next.
Yeah, they'll come next time,
Okay.
yeah, we'll bring Josh and Justine back. Thank you, everyone, we're adjourned.
Hi, everyone.